If you look at the current statistics, it seems like this is the worst time to break into game dev in the last 20 years. Studios are shutting down, people are getting laid off by the thousands, jobs that felt like rock solid just a couple of years ago are simply disappearing. And on top of that, AI, which according to a lot of people is taking work away faster than we can learn it. Sounds like a death sentence for the industry, right? But hold on, before you close the job listing step and go train as an accountant, hear me out. I've got a few facts that just might bring your faith in this industry back. I'll show you how I see it and I'll explain why you most likely don't need to switch careers. You need to switch your approach. And so this doesn't sound like another motivational speech with no substance, let's take a look at history, because what's happening right now has happened before, more than once, and every single time the industry didn't die, it was reborn. In 1983 something happened that's now in every gaming history textbook, the video game crash of 1993. Long story short, the gaming industry in the US literally collapsed within a few months. What happened? Companies were churning out games with zero quality control. Anyone with money and a couple of programmers was pumping out cartridges. Store shelves were buried under absolute garbage. Players would buy a game, boot it up and realize they got scammed again and again and again. At some point, trust just ran out, sales crashed. Thousands of people lost their jobs, studios closed one after another, warehouses full of unsold Atari cartridges were buried in the New Mexico desert. That's not a legend, that actually happened. It looked like games as an industry were done, finished, but here's the thing, this crisis didn't kill the industry, it rebooted it. Nintendo entered the market and did something that hadn't been done before. They introduced strict quality control. Want to release a game on the console? Then come pass our review. Games started coming out less often, but they got better. Players slowly started coming back and eventually the industry grew bigger than it was before the crash. First, chaos, layoffs, freefall, then cleanup and growth. I'm pointing this out because something very similar is happening right now with AI. First, there's going to be a flood of cheap, mediocre content, slop. And then the market is going to start valuing quality even more than before. This actually happened and it works. Let's jump forward to the early 2000s, the dot-com bubble pops. What was that exactly? Internet companies were growing at insane speed, investors were throwing money at anything that ended in .com, and nobody really cared about minor details like a business model or, profit, and then it all collapsed. Trillions of dollars in market cap evaporated in a few months. The result was similar by now: mass layoffs, dead startups, thousands of specialists out of work. But here's the paradox almost no one talks about. It was during this exact period, on the rubble of the crash, that the companies that now rule the internet started taking shape. Amazon, Google, a lot of the services you use every single day were either born in this period or this is when they found their real form. Why did that happen? Because after the crash there was less competition, only the people with real ideas were left, not the ones with pretty pitch decks. Resources, servers, offices, talent got cheaper, and the people who got laid off started building their own project, because they had nothing left to lose. The crisis cleared out the noise and left the opportunities. And this is directly tied to what's happening in game dev right now. When big studios cut people, that's not just an ending, that's a moment when space opens up, when room appears for new players. Yes, when you get laid off from a big studio you lose a subtle paycheck. That's painful, that's scary, but you don't lose two of the most important things. First, experience, and that's the most valuable thing you have in this industry. No one can take that from you. Second, your love for the craft. It's been clear for a long time that game dev is full of obsessed lunatics who just can't help themselves, and that, weirdly enough, is our strength. Because when they take away your office, your salary and your stability, what's left is the sin that brought you in here in the first place. It's possible that right now is exactly when you'll get a chance to build something on your own, or maybe to flip the whole industry on its head. Remember when the animation industry switched from hand-drawn 2D to computer graphics? If you were around for it, you remember how brutal the transition was. A lot of traditional animators, people who'd spent years mastering the craft of frame-by-frame drawing, lost their jobs. Studios closed. At one point, Disney straight up shut down its 2D animation department. Sounds familiar? But running parallel to all of that, an entire new industry was forming. Pixar showed up and didn't just show up, but redefined what animation even is. New professions appeared: 3D artists, VFX specialists, technical artists, riggers, simulation artists, jobs that didn't exist a decade earlier. And the most important part, one person with the new tools could now do what used to take an entire team. Meaning the technology didn't just replace people, it changed what was being asked of them. The ones who adapted ended up in a new industry that paid more than the old one. The ones who refused got left behind. The same thing is happening right now with AI in game dev. Yes, some roles are getting simplified or disappearing entirely. That's true, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But at the same time, new roles are emerging, where what's valued isn't just being skilled in one specific tool, but knowing how to direct the tools, see the result, understand the product as a whole. So, what do we end up with? A whole new field appeared. Not overnight. People kept predicting the death of the industry. Everyone was sure that the computer would replace the artist. But the industry just got reborn, and now it's growing, with no plans of dying. After the 2008 global financial crisis, big studios started cutting teams again. Less work, less stability. But at the same exact moment, something important was happening that almost no one paid attention to back then. Affordable development tools showed up. Unity went free for small developers, GameMaker Studio, a bit later Unreal with its revolutionary royalty model. Publishing platforms appeared too. Steam opened the door for indies, then App Store, Google Play, itch.io. And the people who lost their jobs or just couldn't find one started making games themselves. That's how Minecraft came out, made solo by Marcus Persson. That's how Undertale was born, basically built by one person, Toby Fox, Super Meat Boy, Braid, Stardew Valley, which one developer worked on alone for 4.5 years. The list goes on. These weren't big studios, these were lone wolves or tiny teams of 2 or 3. And here's the key point, they didn't wait for the market to recover, they took advantage of the fact that tools got cheaper, the barrier to entry dropped, and the risk was lower than ever. They didn't need to raise $40 million in investment to start. That's exactly what created the new wave of game dev, a wave where a solo developer could compete with a 100-person studio and sometimes win. And now we get to the present moment, to what's happening right now while you're watching this video. AI is lowering development costs, AI is speeding up production, AI is giving more people access to game dev than ever before in history. Yes, this increases competition, that's true and it would be silly to deny it. Yes, this puts pressure on the old professions, also true, and at the same time it increases your earning potential and your opportunities, because now one person can make a game faster than at any point in history, test more ideas for less money, get to a finished result without a big team behind them, and in moments like this, it's not the people with the most resources who win, the ones who win are the ones who adapt the fastest. History has shown us this several times already. Every crisis first clears people of the market, and then creates a new wave where new leaders appear, names nobody has heard before. History doesn't let the old players hold their positions as easily as they'd like, they have to fight for their spot, and that, oddly enough, levels the playing field for us, indie developers, against the big studios. The gold rush ruined a lot of people, but it also made a lot of people rich, the ones who showed up on time and didn't quit. Bitcoin made millionaires out of the people who were ready to adapt what nobody understood what it even was. Same with the internet, same with mobile games. So you don't think I'm trying to sell you a feel-good fairy tale? Let me say something important. The market really isn't in a great state right now. Finding work is hard, that's true, and I'm not going to argue with it. A lot of talented people are sitting without jobs as we speak, and that's painful. But one of the main reasons humans as a species even survived and got to where we are is the ability to adapt. Not strength, not size, adaptation. And if you genuinely burn for the idea of making games, if your heart is pulled towards this specifically, if you can't picture yourself doing anything else, maybe don't give up on the dream just because things are hard right now. I'll let you sit with that. Think about whether you want to keep going, and if the answer is yes, I'll be glad to see you back on this channel. I'm here to help you walk this path. And if you have questions, drop them in the comments, I'll answer everyone. This was Adam. Good luck!